iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws. The iRacing official V8 Supercar Series, the first race of 2018 Season 2 here at the Circuit de la Sarthe, the 24 Hours of Le Mans hosting circuit. I know, what an incredible combination. V8 Supercars at Le Mans. My name is Reese Gardner, filling in for Bo Albert, and I am joined in the commentary box once again by Zach Hanlon. And Zach, it's quite an interesting combination, isn't it?
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting race. I actually did a little bit of research for once and watched the race prior to this. And a thing that's going to affect a lot of our drivers tonight is slowdowns. The track here at Cirque de la Sarthe, while very good for a lot of prototype and GT racing, I don't think iRacing really took into account the amount of curb that these V8 supercars enjoy using when they were outlining the track limits for the slowdowns on this course. So it's going to be a big issue for a lot of drivers, I think, especially in the opening laps, jostling for position, running out of room here and there. People could lose out big time. So definitely something to watch for. Something else that I've noticed, we've both noticed, Reese, is that our champion from last season, Dane Warren, is not making an appearance tonight.
Yeah, that is one thing that really jumped out to us when we loaded into the session as Benjamin Smith and Corey Preston become our first drivers to set times. Benjamin Smith going into the 3-minute 59s. But yes, Dane Warren not here. Champion for the last 2 seasons. Beat out Marlon McMullen for the title last season, but he is not here. So that's quite an interesting turn of events. So Marlon McMullen, as he does a 3:59.119 for his qualifying time, he's got one less person to worry about.
Yeah, and it's going to be a good opportunity for Mullen to get a bit of the upper hand early in the season. We do have a good strength of field tonight. It's up above 3,000, so there are some good points on offer. Something to note about this qualifying session as well here at the Le Mans circuit is that the drivers do not have enough time to complete 2 laps. So any of the drivers who have completed a lap already, that is what they are stuck with. And I actually noticed Emily Jones, who is on her 2nd attempt right now, she made a mistake on her initial lap, but just had enough time to exit out and start a brand new fresh one. So she'll just sneak over the line with about 30 seconds or so to go. But Ryan O'Sullivan now sitting on the pole with a 3:58.7, which is a very nice lap time, very handy position to start this race from. But also with the massive draft that we see around this circuit as well, P1 may not be the spot that you want to start from.
No, certainly not. This circuit at Le Mans is one of the most historic in the world. It's been holding races since 1921, and a big part of the lap here is, excuse me, is the Uno Dia Strait, which is the strait between Tête Rouge and the actual town of Mulsanne, usually called the Mulsanne Strait, colloquially. And it's broken up by 2 chicanes, but those straight line stretches are still really huge. And then you got it followed up by the run from Mulsanne to Indianapolis, which is a straight with a couple of kinks in it. So these guys are using the absolute maximum gear ratio that these V8 supercars have to offer and reaching the very limit of top speed. So the draft is certainly going to make a massive difference. And as you say, it's not going to be optimal being in first position, especially on lap 1.
Yeah, and not unless you manage to break away in the opening corners. We've still got a couple of drivers to complete their lap, but whoever's on that front row, if a good getaway is going to be absolutely critical here, and you really want to be outside of that 1.1 to 1.3 second margin is roughly about where the draft can still hold you in. So whoever sits on pole tonight, it's going to be very important for them to get away cleanly, as we're just seeing Emily Jones finishing up her lap nice and tidy through this final section here as she comes into the final chicane, a bit deep into there, but nice power coming out, nice and smooth. She'll come over the line and put down a 4:01.1, so that's going to put her P9, which is I think she knows she can do a little better than that, so she'll be looking to push her way through the field. But really good field of drivers tonight, a lot of people we've seen in our broadcast this year, and a couple who we haven't seen as well. So this is going to be a very interesting race, and I think that there's going to be so many things to look at. I don't think we're going to be able to cover everything tonight, but I can assure you that there is going to be plenty of action and lots of jostling for position down those straights. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the first 2 or 3 laps that we see a lot of cars going 3 or even 4 wide down on the Mulsanne straight there.
Yeah, of course. Really looking forward to seeing how everyone gets off the line here. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the grid for this race. Ryan O'Sullivan is in pole position for this, a few tenths ahead of Marlon McMullen. Luke Harvey lines up in 3rd place with Ross Rizzo in 4th. 5th place, Benjamin J. Smith. Corey Preston lining up in 6th place with Michael Taliancic and Thomas Hinz in 7th and 8th, Emily Jones in 9th, and the top 10 is rounded out by Kyle Stokes.
And then we've got a couple of regular drivers, Cooper Webster and Jamie McKnight, sitting there in P11 and 12. They'll be looking to push themselves forward, as well as Greg Sharp there in 13th position. Got Jacob Knight rounding out the 7th row of the grid. Ian Bird and Steve Jansen in P15 and 16 there for you, with Wayne Taylor and Alan Cantato in P18. And we have Jason Cossey and Brenton O'Brien rounding out the top 20, with drivers that weren't able to complete a lap, Michael Cracknell, David Miller and Stephen Varga, all looking to push themselves through this field. Michael Cracknell had a very good race before this, so see how he goes. And the revs are rising now as these 23 V8 supercars get ready to go racing here at Cirque du Sarthe, and we are away with the lead driver of Ryan O'Sullivan not getting the best start. That's going to allow Marlon McMullen to have a bit of a look, and he'll look to go to the outside into this second corner, and that gives you the advantage for the next corner. It looks like Ryan's going to tuck in behind Marlon as Marlon goes a little bit deep. Ryan might actually come in for an over-under here, and he's going to try and make it work. Back up the inside into the next corner here, but I think he's going to tuck it down there, and Ryan O'Sullivan's going to take the lead. So
yes,
good
indeed.
start there, but now he's got the Mulsanne straight to contend with, and a train of very angry V8 supercars in tow.
Yeah, certainly, as they come out of Tête Rouge. All Ryan O'Sullivan took a bit of curb there. I wonder if he might have gotten a slowdown. He has. Ryan O'Sullivan, he's had to serve a slowdown there. So, wow, what heartbreak for him on lap 1. Of course, The top three had managed to eke out quite the gap to the train behind them, as we see Luke Harvey with what looks to be minimal rake on that car, going straight past Marlon McMullen on the straight as Ryan O'Sullivan falls into the pack behind. So Luke Harvey is now your race leader, and I've only just been able to see his car as everyone goes streaming in. It looks like Michael Taliancic going a little bit wide there through the chicane, so he's going to lose some spots, unfortunately for him. But looking at Luke Harvey's car, he's basically running the rear end dragging on the ground. He's getting a lot of straight line speed from that. So you can see Marlon McMullen, every time he goes out of the draft, he just loses speed.
Yeah, I'm actually noticing that on a couple of cars. I have heard a couple of rumors that a lot of teams are running very, very soft springs at this track, probably to cope with a lot of the mechanical grip coming out of these chicane sections, which is essential for getting a good run and getting a good draft on your opponent so that you can make an overtake. But yes, there are a few cars here which do seem to be running what we would call, I guess, negative rake down those straights. And also, I think the more air that you have running, or the higher you have the front of the car, the less aerodynamic advantage you have, which of course means that these guys will be getting better straight line speed down the straights, which is where most of your tactical advantage is. So Ryan O'Sullivan, after having a poor start and getting that slowdown, which is one of the keys to the race that we talked about earlier, is now defending hard from Ross Rizzo and Emily Jones. Emily Jones stuck right on the back of Ryan O'Sullivan there. And Ross Rizzo is going to try and make a move around the outside. They're going to go almost 3 wide here into Indianapolis. Emily Jones going to make a big, bold move down the inside of Ross Rizzo there and tuck back in behind Ryan O'Sullivan. Both of those guys went very, very deep into that corner, but both of them able to hold on to their positions.
Thomas Hins.
Yeah,
what a
Thomas
move from
Hins.
him.
That was a very bold move there, and good to see him moving up through the field. He's pretty much bang where he started, I think, so making up a position that he lost previously. But yeah, these guys settling down a bit. We did see already there are still guys going 2 and 3 wide. Michael Cracknell and I think that's Jason Cossey there going 2 by 2 into the beginning of the Porsche curves here. And Michael will take that position as Ian Bird also trying to make a move on Jason as well, just having a bit of a peek and a bit of a look, but he'll have to tuck back in.
Yes, indeed. And as they go through the Porsche curves, this is where the V8 Supercar, I think, really struggles. These aren't the kind of corners that V8s are usually used to in real life, all these long, flat, sweeping turns. So the drivers are really battling the front ends of their cars here as they're coming around now to finish lap 1, an extremely long lap here at Le Mans, 13.6 kilometers around a lap. So your leader at the moment, once again, Luke Harvey. And seeing it, Sullivan's gotten another slowdown. He's slowing down on the front stretch. What happened to him there? It looks like he just took way too much curb through the Ford chicane, and well, he's lost even more positions now. He got Kyle Stokes going past him now, and he's under a bit of pressure now from Jamie McKnight and Michael Taliancic. This is not a good run for Ryan O'Sullivan at all. He's still trying to clear it.
Still trying to clear it. That's absolutely an awful slowdown to get. It's hard to say if he took too much curb or if he ran too wide on the exit. It is unusual for exit slowdowns to occur in iRacing, but I know that at this corner that they're coming up to now in particular, it is a bit of an issue on the exit there. We're just having a cut right price replay for you as well of a spin further back in the field. So
Alan Cantito had trouble. Looks like he might have suffered some contact with Stephen Varga through the Dunlop chicane. So meanwhile, we've got a change for the lead. It looks like Marlon McMullen has managed to get by Luke Harvey, but no. Harvey goes right back by. McMullen, I think, had a slowdown as well. So slowdowns really affecting this race. Looks to me as though Marlon went way too deep into that first chicane and ended up running across the middle. So Luke Harvey's got one hell of a lead now.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that might be catching a couple of these contenders out as well is a lot of these guys will probably be in left-hand drive cars when they're coming around this circuit normally. I know that I usually go around here in a prototype or a GT3 car or something of similar effect, and those are of course all left-hand drive cars, and sitting on the right-hand side of the car can give you a different perception as to how you're taking the corner, and maybe a few people not accustomed to the track limits in a right-hand drive car as opposed to a left.
Yeah, indeed, that is a factor that you have to consider because Ryan O'Sullivan is done. We're hearing he's out of the race.
Yeah, I might just go back and have a look at that. We'll get a cut price racing replay for you now, and I don't think anything in particular has actually happened to him there. That looks like it could just be out of pure frustration, and you can understand as well, why that would happen. But
before that point, he'd actually gotten yet another slowdown.
Yeah.
He just took way too much curb at that first chicane, and I think from that point on, he just grew overly frustrated with the way this track polices track limits, and well, I guess that's his night done.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, pack behind Hinsey, we're hearing.
Yeah, Thomas Hinz has got a couple of cars trained up behind him. The first of that being Emily Jones, followed by Kyle Stokes very closely, and Jamie McKnight, Michael Taliancic, Ross Rizzo, Jacob Knight, Michael Cracknell, Ian Bird, Jason Cossey, all still within a good range to keep in touch with those that pack that starts with Hinsey. So yeah, very good racing up in this pack here, but Emily Jones looks like she has a little bit of speed, and she's been connected to the back of Thomas's car for the last few corners, and she'll be looking to probably set up a move down the Mulsanne straight and just make sure that she doesn't succumb to Kyle Stokes behind her at this point.
Yes, indeed, and Hinsey, of course, is at a big disadvantage around here because he hasn't got any cars directly in front of him, so he's going to be in big trouble when they get to the Mulsanne. See how they go coming up to the end of lap 2. It is a very long lap here at Le Mans, but I noticed another change for position over that last lap. Benjamin Smith got by Corey Preston, and Corey has had a bit of a tribulous race so far. We noticed on lap 1 he had a bit of an oversteer moment coming over the hill. I don't know if that was due to contact with another car or not, but he allowed that top 3 to break away with that incident, backing up the rest of the field behind him, and now he's got a panel missing from his car, and Benjamin Smith just passed him for 3rd. So Preston looking to maybe minimize a bit of damage here, but he's got Cooper Webster behind him, who also has a bit of damage. The battle is definitely where Hinsey is right now.
Oh yeah, and Emily Jones got a nice smooth run out of the final quarter leading onto the first part of the Mulsanne straight there, and you can see already the amount of time that she has gained on Hinsey in front of her. She's right on the back of him now, so they're doing a bit of bump drafting there. She maybe she doesn't want to pass until she's going to be less susceptible to being overtaken back again by Hinsey. A lot of the overtakes, if you have she gets a bit squirrely coming out of there, so that's going to ruin her chances down here. And actually, Kyle Stokes looking like he's a bit hungry to get past Emily as well. But if you go past on the first part of the Mulsanne straight, you open yourself up to being repassed, and being repassed is just both contenders are losing time, so it's not an ideal situation. Kyle Stokes is having a bit of a look there.
Oh, Preston!
But Preston, oh gosh.
Wow,
what's
okay.
there? We'll go back and get a cut price racing replay for you there.
It looks like Cooper Webster was going for the move.
Yes, he was indeed.
Preston just lost control of his car on the outside, of course. In that particular part of the track, marbles do form on the outside line. The tyres are being put under a lot of load with that heavy braking and turning in for the chicanes. So Corey, unfortunately, caught out there, and Cooper Webster will now be up into 4th place as a result.
Yeah, and Corey Preston's actually just tagged on the back of Kyle Stokes, Emily Jones, and Thomas Hinz. So he'll be interesting to watch for the next couple of laps as he tries to pull himself back through there as well.
Yes.
But
I was going to say Jason Cossey is also spun as well. We were just hearing. So drivers starting to really fall victim to this Le Mans circuit. Looks like, wow, actually, hold up a minute. What happened leading up to Jason Cossey spinning was really interesting. It looked like, yeah, wow, Wayne Taylor spun in front of him. I just looked at that myself. That was incredible stuff. But either way, Ryan, you raise a good point about passing and being repassed down the Mulsanne Straight. I think the best place for anyone to try and make a move would definitely be coming into Indianapolis and up to Arnage, because at that point you don't have any other long straight sections of road where you can be repassed, and you can try your best to sort of eke out a gap through this sequence of turns that ends the lap here at Le Mans.
I mean, you do have that run up to the Porsche curves, but the Porsche curves are a little more defendable than the chicanes on the Mulsanne Straight are. But I definitely agree that coming through in that lead up to Indianapolis and through Indianapolis is going to be one of those key overtaking opportunities if you want to ensure that you're not going to get passed back by your opponents. And Emily Jones has been actually keeping behind Thomas Hinz much longer than I expected her to. Given the speed delta down those straights, I thought she probably would have had a go already, but those cars spreading out a little more now, and Corey Preston being followed closely by Ross Rizzo. So that'll also allow Ross to, if Corey can work his way back up to near the rear end of Carl Stokes, that'll bring Ross Rizzo a little more back into play as well. And you've got to remember as well, Jamie McKnight and Michael Taliancic behind them, two very talented drivers who have put in some fantastic results over the course of many seasons of V8's supercars on the iRacing service. So have to watch out for them as well. And usually lap 4, you would expect a much bigger gap in the lead to the race. Luke Harvey has extended his advantage just slightly beyond that delta of where the draft is, but it actually seems like Marlon is, according to my timing, he is still in that zone where he can still pull a little back. So Marlon not completely out of this fight yet as well.
Certainly not. And you can see Marlon going very deep into those chicanes and managing to get through this time without a slowdown. But I think in the case of Marlon, he's really got to try and minimize mistakes. I noticed I was observing him over the last lap, especially through the Porsche curves. He was driving on the ragged edge of that car's capabilities. And, you know, Marlon is a fantastic driver. You don't finish second in a V8 Supercar Championship for no reason. And his iRating was just immense. But he's starting to show a couple of cracks in his driving, I think, as he's continued to pursue Luke Harvey. So what Marlon needs to do right now is just tone it back, I think, and he'll be able to catch up to Luke that way. Harvey's a bit comfortable there out in front, but if Marlon can just keep up a little bit of consistent pressure, then he might be able to get this move done.
Yeah, and I've actually just seen on my timing as well, Thomas Hinz has made himself past Cooper Webster. So that was a nice little move coming down into the final part of the Mulsanne Straight. Emily Jones looked like she was going to have a move as well, but she's stuck behind Corey now as well. And also Michael Taliancic made his way past Jamie McKnight earlier in the lap as well. Something as well to consider, Reese, is these contenders are not going to have to pit tonight, which is something they normally would have to do. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe there is a fuel critical stage throughout this race, as Emily Jones is still hounding the back of Cooper Webster as they come through Indianapolis there. So conserving the tyres that you have now is also going to be very important, because the tyre temps are going to be very high achieving such great top speeds. Obviously, the more friction you have on the tire, the more heat it generates, and more rotations equals more friction. So I think conserving your tires as much as you can as well is going to help you towards the latter part of this race.
Yeah, certainly would. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead is definitely on now. Marlon has been driving very nicely on this last lap, and he's managed to catch right back up to the rear end of Luke Harvey. As they exit the Porsche curves here, you can see Marlon taking a bit more of a direct line to the apex there. Harvey sort of ran maybe a curb's width wide in that section. So showing his car's weakness in that section of the track. Through the forward chicanes they go once again, and as they bounce over these curbs, it's amazing how much curbs these cars can take, and it looks like Luke has managed to eke out another gap over Marlon here. His car was a lot better over those curbs.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the amount of curbs that these cars can take, because I think that's a significant problem with a lot of the guys getting slowdowns earlier in the race. But I had one of my first completed V8 supercar race in Scops a couple of weeks ago at Sonoma, and on the first lap, I'm pretty sure that I was about 5 degrees from rolling the car about 50 times on one of those curbs. These cars do not mind being launched, and they have almost as much grip on 2 tires as they do on 4. So they definitely do enjoy a good launching over a curb, and it's often advantageous to use as much curb wherever you can. And it's something that's interesting to learn when you're coming from a different specialty type of racing where cars don't agree with curbs, and then all of a sudden you come into a V8 and you see people using literally every micrometer of track that they possibly can, including any sleeping policemen and any curbs that are 6 foot up in the air. They'll take everything and they'll use it as much as they can. And Marlon McMullen got a beautiful exit comparatively to Luke Harvey out of that chicane there. And this is a good place to overtake. It's not the best place to overtake, but it's definitely up there. And Marlon's going to pull himself out, and they are going to go door to door down into the chicane here. And Marlon McMullen has the preferred line. He just needs to make sure he doesn't take it too deep. Otherwise, he's going to ruin his exit, and that's going to give Luke Harvey an advantage down to the next sharp corner.
He's done it.
Pretty evenly matched, and he's made the pass to run a little wide and just pick up a bit of dirt. And
Might be
that's
another
not
outbreaking
optimal
move.
traction. And here comes Luke Harvey back up. He's going to be taking the inside line into Virage de Mulsanne here, and he already got the move done before they get to the corner. Hard on the brakes. Make sure you don't go too deep. But again, Marlon going to make sure he carries as much speed as he can. And this is what we were talking about earlier, Reese. This is the run up to Indianapolis. This is probably your best shot at achieving an overtake without being overtaken again, as we've literally just seen.
Yeah, certainly. And Marlon McMullen once again in the draft of Luke Harvey here, and he's going to pull out and try and go for this move. Will Harvey yield, or will he try and defend? I think it's still a bit early in the race for any hardcore defending, and Harvey knows that, so he's just slotted back in. Marlon, not really the preferred line there through Indianapolis, which is allowed Luke Harvey to stay right on the back of him. Whoa, goodness me. I think Luke wasn't really thinking about making a move there, but Marlon ended up overshooting slightly. So now they're going to go side by side on the run up to the Porsche curves. And at this rate, I have a feeling that Marlon is going to have to yield here, because Luke is on the inside line, and a V8 Supercar through these corners, Harvey would probably just understeer right out of the way, and Marlon caught on the marbles, no grip out there. He's going to have to slot back in behind again, but this battle for the lead is fantastic right now.
Yeah, this is what I was hoping to see, actually, and it's always fun to have a nice close race up the front. I think Marlon playing the safer course there, he probably could have used the loud pedal to get himself up enough alongside Harvey, where Harvey would have had to yield into the second part of those Porsche curves there. But it was probably a wise decision just to chill back. They're only halfway through this race, and he's going to have plenty more opportunities. And as he's seen, he can make up a deficit from 1.3 seconds back and have an opportunity to make 2 overtaking maneuvers on the next lap. So both of these guys, I think that they'll trade places and have a bit of a go, but I think it won't really start getting dire until the last couple of laps. And another thing as well, when you're going for that overtaking move, especially for the lead of the race, and you are very committed, there is there's not always a very good chance, but there's a lot more pressure on the move, and there's a lot more chance for you to, I guess, make a mistake and run too deep and go off the track. And a small mistake like that could give you a 1.5 to 2 second advantage over your competitor, and on this track, that's pretty much game over. So that's probably why you're not seeing these guys too defensive. They'll be hoping that one of the other ones makes a mistake, runs too deep or runs wide, and they can win the race that way. But they're not afraid to trade places, that's for sure, as Marlon actually gets a good amount of overspeed there and makes the move, but he cuts it he cuts a lot on the entry to that. And will he get a slowdown?
No, I don't think that was enough for a slowdown, but he certainly suffered from a bit of oversteer mid-corner, which has ruined his run and allowed Harvey to come back alongside him. And these guys are going to continue trading places like this, I think, all race. The question is, like, on the last lap, you want to be able to make the move and make it stick, but you want to be precise because, as we've discussed many times, these slowdowns are absolutely brutal. And you don't want to ruin your chance at the last possible moment.
No, you don't. And Reese, I'm just seeing Emily Jones making a move there on Cooper Webster. So she's been working on that for a couple of laps, and she'll reside back behind the car of Thomas Hinz, who's been leading that train for the last couple. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You want to be very calculated on that final lap. We've seen it in real life, even in a lot of oval racing is a great example. You could almost associate oval racing with this race right now, because especially at tracks like Daytona or the Indianapolis 500, maybe you don't want to lead on the final lap. Maybe you want to be the second or the third car back. It's all about deciding based on previous experience what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are, and using that education from the previous laps to make your decision. And I'm sure that in a couple of laps, we'll see a critical moment come to pass, and one of those two guys, I'm sure, will be taking this race out, unless they have a bit of a kerfuffle. And Mr. Quiet, Benjamin J. Smith, sitting there in third position, who's got 5 seconds to the car ahead and 4 seconds to the car behind. I'm sure that he'll be ready to capitalize on any misfortunes that our leaders do have.
Yeah, certainly. We've just had half a move being made. Ross Rizzo on Kyle Stokes. He's going to have to fall back in behind once again at Arnage. That train, Hinzy's practically Thomas the Tank Engine right now with this this freight train behind him. And Emily Jones, you can see, is starting to get a little bit hungrier corner by corner. She's gone a bit too deep into the Porsche curves, and Cooper Webster will be observing that. But Kyle Stokes and Ross Rizzo have now fallen off the back of this train, so they're going to have to, I think, work together to try and get back up to these guys.
Yeah, well, the gap's not too bad at the moment, and Cooper Webster's hanging just off the back of Emily Jones enough that I don't think these guys are really going to have to worry. But they don't want to fight, not right now. They're going to want to fight when they get to the Mulsanne Straight, and they are not going to fight as they come into the final chicane section of this track. But yeah, I think that we'll be seeing a couple of people biding their time. I think Emily Jones is one of them. I don't think that she's going to have much of an opportunity to proceed any further than fourth position unless there's a bit of unfortunality for any of the people who are running ahead of her. But she may just bide her time in this train here, so long as she's not getting given too much of a hard time by Cooper Webster. And if Kyle Stokes and Ross Rizzo can continue their form and get back on the back of Cooper as well, that'll free up a bit of her pressure, and she can focus more on a move. Surprised Michael Taliancic and Jamie McKnight haven't been making up as much ground on the pack ahead of them as I thought. They actually had a fairly slow lap the last time around, so I don't know if they had a little bit of battling there as we were watching the leaders so intently, but those guys still plugging away and trying to catch up to that battle pack ahead of them.
Yes, indeed. Tell you what, this race is practically a stalemate at the moment. Emily Jones coming up to the back of Thomas Hinz once again, giving him a huge bump in the rear. A little bit of an extra boost as they come up to the first of the chicanes on the Route de Uno Dier. And oh my goodness, have a look behind them. Kyle Stokes running very deep into the chicane, and I think that's going to put paid to his position in that battle.
Yeah, big time. He's lost out to Ross Rizzo, and combined with what I believe will be a slowdown for him, I think he's probably, let's see, what's the gap for Kyle Stokes at the moment? It is 1.7 seconds. So if he can get through this next couple of corners with a good amount of pace, he may be able to stay onto the back of Ross Rizzo and keep up with that train. Jamie McKnight made his way past Michael Taliancic just before as well on that straight there. So those guys still having a little battle amongst themselves, and they're obviously still having a bit of a go. So looks like position 10 is what they've decided that they're willing to fight for. But a lot of this pack now really just calming down and playing the long game. We've got 3 laps to go, which is almost 15 minutes, if you can believe that. In fact, it will be 15 minutes by the time we've completed this lap as well. So still a third of this race to go, and everyone just trying to keep it nice and cool until the grand finale.
Yes, indeed. You see a lap number of 10 at this circuit, and you think, well, gee, that's not going to be a very long race. But you got to remember, a lap around here in a V8 supercar is just shy of 4 minutes if you're one of the top guys. So it does take a while to negotiate this circuit. So 10 laps, working out to about a 40-minute race. It's quite some time to really let that fatigue set in if you're not careful. It's very easy to doze off on these straights.
It is. It's a big concentration killer, especially if you've got any small minor little distraction can be multiplied. And Marlon McMullen getting very squirrely through the Porsche curbs there, and Luke Harvey looking very feisty on the back of him. But yeah, it's a very good point. You can daydream for half a second and all of a sudden 100 meters has gone past, and whoop, that was my braking marker 50 meters ago. Yeah. And there you go, flying through a corner that you really should have stopped for. And Luke Harvey really harassing the back of Marlon McMullen, and Luke Harvey's typically been faster through this section of the track. And it is interesting the way that you see both of those cars attacking the curbs in different ways and the way that they react differently. And just the way it is astounding, the amount that that Luke Harvey's car is picking up at the front, that you made up, you said before. And I believe we've just heard Thomas Hins has had a slowdown.
Oh,
so
no.
After such a good run for the last 30 minutes of this race, coming up from P8 up to P4 and holding the front of that train, he's had to give that up to Emily Jones, and Emily's now got Ross Rizzo right on the back of her too. So Ross has managed to clear all those cars and make his way back onto the back of the lead of the train, essentially. So very nice job from him. And Emily Jones now the one with everything to lose at the front of this pack.
Yes, indeed. She hasn't got Hinsey to bump draft anymore. Having said that, Hinsey, he hasn't lost out as much from that slowdown as I initially thought he would. He's still right up behind Jones and Rizzo. So who knows? If he makes some shrewd moves, he might be able to get back up to the front of this pack. You can see he's already having a little bit of a look past Ross Rizzo. And speaking of Rizzo, he's got one hell of a draft, and Jones is stuck out on the bumps here. She wants to make sure that she doesn't use too much of those shoulders of the highway, because there's not much grip on those. Meanwhile, Rizzo's gotten the move done, but his exit has been compromised slightly. So now these drivers are all bumper to bumper, and Jones is going to try and make the move back here. Meanwhile, a change for the lead. Luke Harvey has managed to blast by Marlon McMullen on the straight, and the battle for the lead continues. These guys have just been trading places left, right, and center. Meanwhile, Jones and Rizzo side by side. Rizzo will have the inside line, and Emily's going to have to yield to Ross here. So the train continues for at least a few more corners.
Yeah, you can see what Emily's doing, though. She's backing up. She's accepted the fact that Ross is going to go into the corner first, and Luke Harvey and McMullen. Yeah, McMullen making a move back. Down on the inside, and he's made that nice again, and Luke Harvey's going to go for the over-under, so he's going to have a nice run up into Indianapolis as well. And just while they're on the run-up, Emily Jones has managed to hold off Ross Rizzo and take that position back. So she was just ensuring that she was going to get the best run off the straight to make sure she could get that position back. And Luke Harvey sails past Marlon McMullen coming down into Indianapolis.
Have a look at
Marlon's going to
Marlon.
have a little bit of a look, but going to pull back and just have at it he'll just bide his time. And you can see maybe these guys are playing with each other, seeing where the other car is stronger, seeing where the other car has a disadvantage, and just making sure that they have everything perfectly planned out for that final lap. Because
Well, meanwhile, Cracknell Knight and Preston going 3 wide down the straight and nearly coming to a bit of a punch-up coming into Indianapolis, but they've all managed to get through there. But meanwhile, the leaders side by side, once again, it's all going off here in this race as Marlon is attempting to just pressure Luke Harvey into a mistake through the Porsche curves. And I noticed as soon as Indianapolis, he was moving around in Luke Harvey's mirrors. That's the tried, tested, and true tactic of trying to distract your opponent and perhaps force them into a mistake. Both Marlon and Luke are very experienced racers, so they're both very wise to those sorts of tactics.
yeah, well, I can tell you with good authority that is a very, very good
Harvey.
Yeah, he got a little bit squirrely coming out of the exit there, and McMullen's going to have a nice run, but I don't want to do too much with it. But yeah, it is a very good trick to have up in your book, always just to do exactly what he's doing now. Not necessarily have the intention of making a move, but just allowing the other person to question whether or not it's going to happen. Because if they have to think about it and they think, oh yeah, it's coming, they might give you the room. And then you just slide up the inside and say, thank you very much, mate. I will have that off you, actually. And just showing the nose can make a big difference. And it can also, as well, if you are racing hard, it can also prevent you from just absolutely careering into the back of your fellow competitor. But I don't see these guys calming it down this lap. It looks like Marlon again has a very good run coming out onto the first part of the Mulsanne, and as they come up over 280 kilometers an hour, I think they nearly hit 300 or go just over 300 as they're coming down into the braking zone here. 303, 304, 305, and they both brake very late. That's a lot more side by side than they've been typically going through these last couple of laps. But Harvey going, not actually getting a great exit out of that corner, or not getting good mid-corner speed, but he did carry a bit of momentum through the exit. And Emily Jones has had a moment. So that's absolutely devastating for her. So Ross Rizzo actually managed to get past her, and she had a huge moment under brakes, locking the rear there and having to give that position away. And Luke Harvey back through into
These
the
guys
lead.
are not letting up. The thing that's the thing. Like they both know that they only have once they cross the line next, they've only got 1 lap left to decide this race. So the question is, if you're the car behind, do you stay behind and make sure that you make the move where it counts? Because all of this trading spots is nice for us as broadcasters and spectators, and I'm sure it's fun for the drivers out there. But it's a game of chess. It's a game of back and forth. You don't want to be that guy in first place coming into the final meaningful braking zone on this course, because then you basically got the race lost.
You took the words right out of my mouth by saying it's almost like a chess game, and moving his bishop to d4 is Marlon McMullen, but he's actually going to reconsider that move. He didn't take his finger off the piece, luckily, so he can put that one back down and reconsider his options. I just saw in the background as well, Emily Jones had a big slide coming onto the straight. She's managed to hold on behind Thomas Hinz, but was receiving a large amount of pressure from Cooper Webster there. But yeah, a game of chess is probably the best way to describe this right now. But these guys are playing a very aggressive game of chess, I have to say, because Marlon McMullen is right up the inside coming on the entry to the Porsche curves, and he's going to try and stop in time. And they're going to just make it, but Harvey pulling it strong around the outside, very bold. And that's what I was saying earlier. If you can keep it on the gas and make sure that you're right up next to the guy. He may have to concede on the second part of that corner, and Luke Harvey playing that example out perfectly for us there, Luke. So thank you there for backing up what I was saying earlier. But we are now about to start the final lap of this race, and let's race. Who's going to win? Tell me right now.
Why are you asking me? I don't know. This has been a crazy race between the leaders so far, and right now Marlon McMullen is in the box seat to make this next braking maneuver. But if he wants to win, if he wants to be sure of winning, he can't make the move too early.
I agree.
It's one thing to make the move, but being able to defend it, you can't do that here down this Uno Diaz straight. And Harvey, a little bit of oversteer coming out of the Dunlop chicane, now down through the S's they go for the final time here. And Harvey will be watching his mirrors. It's a bad idea to defend at this point. You can't defend. Luke Harvey, more oversteer. He's starting to show some cracks in his driving as well. Luke Harvey, big oversteer coming out of Tetra Rouge. And it doesn't seem to have compromised his exit all that much, but wait until they come to this chicane. Will Marlon McMullen make the move here? He can make the move, get repassed on the second section of the straight, and then go for the move down at Mulsanne. But have a look. See that? Marlon McMullen is lifting off. This is exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
He's not going to make this move.
No, I reckon, see, it was very smart, the move that he made on that previous Porsche curves on Luke Harvey, because now he knows that Luke can actually work the outside of that track at the Porsche curves, and so he's got a much lower success rate of probably making that move. So I think that not after this chicane, but after the next, after Virage de Mulsanne, which is the tight 90-degree corner coming up to Indianapolis, I think that that's where Marlon is going to have to play his trump card, and that's where he's going to have to make sure that he carries as much speed out of the exit of that corner as he possibly can. He is in the hot seat right now, and I know let me just put it this way. I know what I'd be doing if I was him, but in the heat of the moment, you never know what's going to happen. So Luke Harvey still has the advantage. Marlon poking the nose. Oh, goodness, that was close. And he was making sure. And Harvey, very big oversteer. This is it. This is what Marlon needed to do. But can Luke get back in the draft and overtake again?
This is
he
it.
He could definitely do that.
It's definitely possible. I mean, looking at Marlon, you can see Harvey hasn't lost much time. He's back at the draft once again. Marlon McMullen is going to go defensive here into the first part of Indianapolis. You don't want to go side by side through that corner.
I reckon they will, though.
Harvey,
they won't.
He's managed to just get by. And so now Marlon knows that all of the long straights of this lap are now over. If he wants to win, he's going to have to put the move in the Porsche curves or coming into the final chicanes, but both are really big asks.
Yeah, they are. Luke's just so twitchy at the moment. Marlon didn't get the best run out of there, but is it enough to kind of get up there? I don't think it is. So, and Luke, his car's been very strong through the Porsche curves. We saw him going around the outside and having plenty of grip. So, can Marlon make a last moment dash?
No,
he can't. He's pushed it too far. He's pushed it too far. So Luke Harvey, after a very long 40-minute duel, starting from, where did he start in this race? He started third, if I'm not mistaken. So pushing himself from third on the grid and having an absolute screamer of a race with Marlon McMullen. He will come in to the final section of the track uncontested, and TTR's Luke Harvey looks like he's going to take victory here for round one in the iRacing V8 Supercar Championship. Luke Harvey is your race winner at Cirque de la Sarthe, and well-deserved, and a well-deserved second from Marlon McMullen. Benjamin Smith getting very crazy. That's probably the craziest he's gotten all race with the quietness that he had. Thomas Hinz coming over, followed by Ross Rizzo, Emily Jones, and Cooper Webster. Kyle Stokes for P8, Jamie McKnight and Michael Taliancic battling for the final spot in the top 10. And P9 will go to Jamie McKnight, Michael Taliancic with the final top 10 position there. Michael Cracknell, Jacob Knight, Wayne Taylor, Brenton O'Brien getting up in the top 15 too. Good for him. And Greg Sharp picking up 15th position. Well, yeah, and Preston having another just shocker of a race.
And I tell you, one thing that we also missed was Ross Rizzo making a mistake on the last lap down at the Mulsanne corner. Ended up just getting on the brakes a little bit too late, locking up those rears and sliding wide. That allowed Thomas Hinz back through into 4th place. So we're just getting a CPR Kart and SimParts replay of that, just coming up over the crest. What must have been going through Ross Rizzo's mind at this moment? Just he'd done such a sterling job all race. I'm sure Thomas Hinz would have been very happy to see that.
Yeah, well, you know, it happens to the best of us, and Ross has got good spirits. So I know he's always got pretty good spirits when it comes to racing. So he'll probably just use that as a bit of a learning experience and try not to beat himself up too hard about it and come back out next time. But I mean, it's so easy to do when you're under that much pressure. And that is a very difficult braking zone, no matter what car you're in. If you're in a prototype, if you're in a GT3, if you're in a V8 supercar, or even a Formula One car, that corner is never a fun one to take, especially without ABS. But he held on for 5th place, which is a very solid result, especially in a strength of field race as high as this. So I don't think he'll be too disappointed with that, but he'll just take it on board and hopefully not do the same thing when he comes out next time.
Yeah, certainly. And results are on the screen. Luke Harvey, your race victor, with Marlon McMullen coming home in 2nd. It looked to me like he just tried to use that apron on the side of the road to get a little bit of an advantage, but he ran over the AstroTurf, and that made him lose a little bit of grip on the outside. So he has to settle for position 2. Benjamin Smith in 3rd place, with Thomas Hinz in 4th, Ross Rizzo in 5th, Emily Jones 6th, Cooper Webster finishes in 7th place, with 8th place going to Kyle Stokes, Jamie McKnight finishing in 9th, and Michael Taliancic sliding backwards a little bit, but he still gets a top 10.
And then we got Michael Cracknell in P number 11, Jacob Knight in P number 12. Those guys traded positions a couple of times in the closing laps there as well. Wayne Taylor bringing in P13, with Brenton O'Brien making his way up from 20th into 14th position. Greg Sharp followed him up for the final top 15 position, with Steve Jansen in 16th, David Miller 17th, Stephen Varga, Ian Bird, and Jason Cossey rounding out your top 20. Corey Preston having an absolute shocker of a race. He rubbed the wall early on, causing him a bit of aero damage, which we did see a panel missing off his car, and that was really tragic for him. He finished in P21, with Alan Cantito with an incident earlier on in P22, and Ryan O'Sullivan, who just got too frustrated he was obviously our pole sitter, and just got too many slowdowns in the opening part of that race. And we did say, as the guys were in qualifying, that was going to be a big part of the result tonight, and it evidently was.
Yeah, certainly was. Ryan O'Sullivan brought basically completely out of contention in that race, which is a real shame for him. But, you know, it's races like this that will strengthen your character as a driver, and I'm sure Ryan will have learnt from that, and he'll come back stronger next time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. You know, a lot of people have that never give up attitude, but sometimes, if you know yourself, sometimes it's better to just park it and breathe and come back for another day. And you know, Ryan's a very good driver. He put it on pole ahead of a stellar field of cars. So I have no doubts that he'll be back to try and get that top step one more time. And I have no doubts that we'll see him, if not achieve that, get very close to it throughout the season.
Yeah, certainly. Well, if that result's anything to go by, we're certainly in for one hell of a season in the iRacing official V8 Supercar series. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody watching, and thanks for having me on once again, Zach. It was a very enjoyable event.
Reese, it's always a pleasure to have you. You're one of the most famous voices in the Australian iRacing community, so it is always a pleasure.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you very much, Zach. And we will see you all for our next broadcast in March on V8's Online next Monday. That's the iRacing official V8 Supercars series at Sonoma Raceway. So looking forward to that, and certainly going to be an interesting one. So don't go away on V8's Online. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitch as well. We also stream to there, and be sure to check out www.v8online.com for all information on who we are, what we do, and the latest news from the Australian sim community. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Reese Gardner, Zach Hanlon alongside me in the commentary box. We'll see you next time.